Shabbat Shalom Yasharallah. Welcome to Torah portion week 9, covering Genesis 37 all the way to Genesis 40 to 23, verse 23, the entirety of chapter 40. We will the next 2 to 3 weeks is all about, you have the 12 sons, but we know who stands in the center of the main character, and that is Joseph here. So we're going to get quite a bit of them. This is some of my favorite timing during the Torah portions. I love the story of Joseph. I love it. So let's get started now. Oh, of course. Yes, with a prayer. Let's pray all together. Even if you're watching it later, ask the Ruach. Heavenly Abba, Higher in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thank you for allowing us to be here on your holy convocation that you have set apart for. You have called us out of this world, Haya, so we could be set apart and be here with you, and we are in full gratitude. I want to give a prayer of guidance and deliverance from the evils of this world. I have felt a presence around your people, Heavenly Father. And I know we have to be tried to endure, but we ask for mercy and we ask for the guidance and the Ruach, because we know we can only make it through the power of your kingdom and your name, Haya. In all that we do, we ask for guidance, we ask for protection, we ask for endurance, we ask for strength, just so we can serve you. And in doing so, we pray that we get it right and that you give us the Ruach and the discernment to do so. Lead this reading through the Ruach and protect this line of fellowship. And once again, Tuda Haya Bahashim Yasha. Amen. Amen. All right, let's begin here. We're going to be reading Genesis 37, verses 1 through 11. And let's blow the shofar. Let's put some fear into Hasatan. Numbers 10:10. Let's get it. Hot dog. Let them know we know what time it is. Okay. Almost forgot to blow the shofar. All right. Chapter 37, verse 1 through 11. And the first chapter is very heavy, and then it thins out as we go. So let's begin.
Genesis 37. And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying.
All right. All right, we're going to Jasher chapter 41. Verses just 2 and 3. So before we get going, just want to point out that because the 66 book canon that we call the Bible, doesn't give us all the details. So we want to point out that there was a death that happened. Verse 2, and it was in those days, in that year being the 106th year of the life of Jacob, in the 10th year of Jacob's coming from Aram, that Leah, the wife of Jacob, died. She was 51 years old when she died in Hebron. And 51, especially for that time frame, that's pretty young. I mean, that's young for us, dying at 51. And they buried her in Hebron, which we remembered Abraham bought for a possession of a burial place. So I just want to point that out, that Leah is no longer with us in this reading. But yeah. Now let's go to the Targums, chapter 37, verse 2. Yeah, both of the sisters, Rachel and Leah died fairly young, especially for their time frame. All right, so we're going to read the Targums, and we're going to read verse 2 to put in perspective, because verse 2 in the canon says that Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. It doesn't really say, like, it just random, sort of like, okay, what's that mean, right? So let's go in it. Here we go. He had come forth from, here we go. Joseph was a son of 17 years, so 17 years old. And he had come forth from the school and was a youth brought up with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought their evil report. So here's the evil report. For he has seen them eat the flesh that had been torn by wild beasts, the ears and the tails. And he came and told it to his father. All right. So that's just a little detail that I wanted to mention, that was the evil report, that they were eating something that was deemed unclean. So I guess in modern day understanding, he was one of the youngest brothers. Only Benjamin is younger than him. And he was a tattletale. He was an overachieving tattletale. That was him. He was him. And Joseph knew he was. Joseph was different from, obviously, his youth. But he went and tattletaled on his older brothers, and he was telling him through his dreams and his visions that he was sort of better than him, right? And this is why they couldn't stand him. Let's continue, though. And I accidentally clicked off. Let me see if I can.
I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the son unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth. And his brethren.
All right, so now we're going to read verses 12 through 20.
envy him. But his father observed the saying, and his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here am I. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed hence. For I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit. And we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams.
Okay. Now we're starting to get good. Let's go into the Aramaic Targum, chapter 37, verses 13 through 17. All right, 13 through 17. Okay. Got my range. Oh, I just wish they had the verses on here. All right, so that's what we're reading here. All right. And his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And it was at the time of days that Israel said to Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed in Shechem? But I am afraid lest the Hivites come and smite them, because they smote Tamar and Shechem and the inhabitants of the city. Come now, I will send thee to them. And he said, Behold, and he said, Go, see the welfare of your brethren and the welfare of the flock, and return me word to the deep council. But he sent him according to the deep counsel which was spoken to Abraham in Hebron. For on that day began the captivity of Mizraim, the Egyptians. So according to this is the same timing the Israelites went into captivity. And Joseph arose and came to Shechem. And Gabriel, in the likeness of a man, found him wandering in the field. So this man, let me see, verse 15, and a certain man found him. This was an angel. And an angel actually named as Gabriel. Where did I go? Okay, here we go. Lost my spot. And Gabriel, in the likeness of a man, found him wandering field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brothers. Show me, pray, where they feed. And the man said, They have journeyed hence, for I heard beyond veil that, behold, from today would begin the servitude to the Mizraim. And it was said to them in prophecy, they would seek to set battle in array against them. Therefore said they, We will go unto Dothan. So we see that what Jacob, the father of Joseph, sent Joseph out there because he felt in his ruach the same thing as this, that people were looking for them to kill them. And it was spoken to them and therefore they were sent to Dothan. And Joseph's father felt this, so he sent Joseph to check on their wellness. And the other main detail of reading this was that man was an angel. And we actually see this as another precept in Jasher 41. Let's go to Jasher 41, verses 18 through 24. And the sons of Jacob went one day to feed their father's flock at Shechem, for they were still herdsmen in those days. And whilst the sons of Jacob were that day feeding in Shechem, they delayed. And the time of gathering in the cattle was past, and they had not arrived. And Jacob saw that his sons were delayed in Shechem. And Jacob said, wherein himself, peradventure, the people of Shechem have risen up to fight against them. Therefore, they have delayed coming this day. So there was a worrisome. That was the reason why Joseph was sent out, about just that. And Jacob called Joseph his son and commanded him, saying, behold, thy brethren are feeding in Shechem this day, and behold, they have not yet come. Go now, therefore, and see where they are, and bring me word back concerning the welfare of thy brethren and the welfare of the flock. And Jacob sent his son Joseph to the valley of Hebron. And Joseph came for his brothers to Shechem and could not find them. And Joseph went about the field which was near Shechem to see where his brothers had turned. And he missed his road in the wilderness and knew not which way he should go. And an angel of the Most High. Once again, the Aramaic Targum is another precept for the book of Jasher. They work really well together. And an angel of the Most High found him wandering in the road. And now we also see why an angel of the Most High was sent, because Joseph didn't know where he was going and he needed to be pointed in the right direction. Was wandering in the road towards the field, and Joseph said unto the angel of the Most High, I seek my brethren. Hast thou not heard where they are feeding? And the angel of the Most High said unto Joseph, I saw thy brethren feeding here, and I heard them saying they would go to feed in Dothan. And Joseph hearkened to the voice of the angel of the Most High, and he went to his brother in Dothan, and he found them in Dothan feeding the flock. And Joseph advanced to his brother, and before he had come nigh unto them, they had resolved to slay him. All right, well, let's get back to the canon now. Now we're going to read verses 21 through 28.
And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him, and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread. And they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother, and conceal his blood? Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt.
All right, let's get more of this story details in Jasher. Let's go to Jasher 42. 42, verse 5 and 7. Then we'll go to 17 and 25. Chapter 42 in the book of Jasher. Here we go. Verse 5. And whilst they were discoursing about this matter, and before the company of Ishmaelites had come up to them, 7 trading men of Midian passed by them. And as they passed, they were thirsty, and they lifted up their eyes and saw the pit in which Joseph was immersed. And they looked, and behold, every species of bird was upon him. And these Midianites ran to the pit to drink water, for they thought that it contained water. And on coming before the pit, they heard the voice of Joseph crying and weeping in the pit. And they looked down into the pit, and they saw, and behold, there was a youth of comely appearance and well-favored. I'm gonna go ahead and set the standard for Joseph. It doesn't matter what book you read. Joseph is a good-looking man. They make it clear over and over and over again. I don't know why, but it's I guess we'll see that it is important in a sense of the context. But man, Joseph was a good-looking man. Let's just say that. And they called unto him and said, Who art thou? And who brought thee hither? And who placed thee in this pit in the wilderness? And they all assisted to raise up Joseph, and they drew him out and brought him up from the pit and took him and went away on their journey and passed by his brethren. All right, so we see that the Midianites found him and rescued him. And to summarize what happens all the way to verse 17, so we see in verse 17, the Midianites run into the sons of Jacob, and they're saying, give us Joseph back. He's ours to deal with. And Midianites is questioning if they are his and what is their purpose of Joseph. And this is where we're at in verse 17 through 25. All right. Let's do this. 17. Surely you have said that the young man is your servant. So this is the Midianites talking to the sons of Jacob, and that he rebelled against you, and therefore you placed him in the pit. What then will you do with a servant who rebels against his master? Now therefore sell him unto us, and we will give you all that you require for him. And the Adon was pleased to do this in order that the sons of Jacob should not slay their brother. And the Midianites saw that Joseph was of comely appearance. You see what I mean? We're going to keep seeing this. And well-favored, and they desired him in their hearts and were urgent to purchase him from his brethren. And the sons of Jacob hearkened to the Midianites, and they sold their brother Joseph to them for 20 pieces of silver. And Reuben, their brother, was not with them. And the Midianites took Joseph and continued their journey to Gilead. They were going along the road, and the Midianites repented of what they had done in having purchased the young man. And one said to another, what is this thing that we have done in taking this youth from the Hebrews, who is comely appearance and well-favored? I mean, okay. Perhaps this youth is stolen from the land of the Hebrews. And why then have we done this thing? And if he should be sought for and found in our hands, we shall die through him. Now, surely, hardy and powerful men have sold him to us, the strength of one of whom you saw this day. They're talking about Simeon, if you read this entire chapter. Perhaps they stole him from his land with their might and with their powerful arm, and have therefore sold him to us for the small value which we gave unto them. And while if they were thus discoursing together, they looked, and behold, the company of Ishmaelites, which was coming at first, and which the sons of Jacob saw, was advancing towards the Midianites. And the Midianites said to each other, come, let us sell the youth to the company of the Ishmaelites who are coming towards us, and we will take for him the little that we gave for him, and we will be delivered from his evil. And they did so, and they reached the Ishmaelites, and the Midianites sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, which they had given for him to his brethren. And the Midianites went on their road to Gilead, and the Ishmaelites took Joseph, and they let him ride upon one of the camels, and they were leading him to Egypt. So that was a whole exchange that was summarized right here of the 20 pieces of the Midianites. It was like a whole exchange happened here that just was summarized, but sold it to the Midianites, and the Midianites sold it to the Ishmaelites, and that's how he got to Egypt. All right, now we're going to go to, and the rest of chapter 42 of Jasher is just the travel. You know, there's a details that happens in the travel, but we're going to go to 43 verses 7 through 10. When Reuben returns, and Reuben sat with them, and they all rose up and swore to each other. Yeah, okay, I'm making sure. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I didn't have it written down to read, but yes, Reuben returns, and he went to the pit to take Joseph out, and he wasn't in the pit. And we'll read more on that. Reuben was very upset about this. He really wanted to redeem his brother to his father, but we'll get to that in a little bit. All right, verse 7. And Reuben sat with them, and they all rose up and swore to each other not to tell this thing unto Jacob. And they all said, the man who will tell this to our father or his household, or who will report this to any of the children of the land, we will all rise up against him and slay him with the sword. And the sons of Jacob feared each other in this manner, from the youngest to the oldest, and no one spoke a word, and they concealed the thing in their hearts. And they afterwards sat down to determine and invent something to say unto their father Jacob concerning all these things. And Issachar said unto them, here is an advice for you. If it is seem good in your eyes to do this thing, take the coat which belongeth to Joseph and tear it, and kill a kid of the goats and dip it in his blood. And we're going to stop there. We'll read a little bit more into what they do with and what transpires after they take his coat, dip it into goat blood, and brings it back to their father. All right, now we're going to finish up chapter 37, verses 29 through 36.
And Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit. And he rent his clothes. And he returned unto his brethren and said, the child is not, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat, and killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, this have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it, and said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted, and he said, for I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's, and captain of the guard.
All right. I guess I could have read Jasher 43, 7 and 10 after that. Let me make an arrow for future purposes. Would have been a little bit better timing, but we get the gist. All right. That was just what happened with the brothers. It was Issachar's idea. I mean, either way, they all was, I guess, stuck under this oath. Even Reuben, which didn't want it to happen. But let's read more into it. We're going to go into the Targums, chapter 37, and we're going to read 29 through 31. Let me just find my place marker now. 29 through 31. Let me see here. Here we go. Let's see my stopping point. Blood. And Reuben returned to the pit, for he had not been with them to assist when they sold him, because he had sat fasting. So on account that he had confounded the couch of his father. So I mean, Reuben really didn't want this to happen. And he had gone and sat among the hills, that he might return to the pit and bring him up for his father, if happily he might avert his anger. But when he had returned, so we got to understand with Reuben slept with Bilhah. So Reuben is really trying to earn his father's, approval back at this point as well. But when he had returned and looked, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, he rent his clothes and returned to his brethren and said, the youth is not, and I, whither shall I go, and how shall I see the look of my father's face? But they took the garment of Joseph and killed a kid of the goats, because his blood is like the blood of a man. Wow, that's interesting, right? What animal do we use on Day of Atonement? Day of Atonement is the atonement of our sins, of man's sins, and we use goat blood. Is this why? Because goat's blood is like the blood of a man? Very interesting. And they dabbled the garment in the blood, and they sent it by the hand of the sons of Zilpah and of the sons of Bilhah, the figured garment, and they brought it to their father and said, this have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's garment or not. And we'll stop right there. Yeah, we'll stop right there. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. Yep, we'll stop right there. Nothing else new after that. And you know what? I got my Shavuot study coming up, and we're going to, in Day of Atonement, I want to make a note. Give me 1 second. I want to make a note. For this Day of Atonement. What's this? The Targum and okay. All right. Gotta make my quick note real quick. All right. Now, oh, got so many comments. 1 second. I'll take a quick peek real quick. Okay. Now we're going to go to Jubilees 34, 12, and 8. Excuse me, 12 through 18, 12 through 8. That's backwards. 12 through 18. Let's get it. And the sons of Jacob slaughtered a kid and dipped the coat of Joseph in the blood and sent it to Jacob their father on the 10th of the 7th month. What do you know? Day of Atonement is the 10th of the 7th month. And they used a goat. Let's continue. And he mourned all that night, for they had brought it to him in the evening, and became feverish with mourning for his death, and said, an evil beast has devoured Joseph, and all the members of his house mourned with him that day, and they were grieving and mourning with him all that day. And his sons and his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted for his son. And on that day, Bilhah heard that Joseph had perished, and she died mourning him. Wow. Chain reaction happening right now. And she was living in this land, and Dinah also, his daughter, died after Joseph had perished. And they're all dying relatively young. This is like young. And there came these 3 mornings upon Yasharallah in 1 month. And they buried Bilhah over against the tomb of Rachel, and Dinah also, his daughter, they buried there. And he mourned for Joseph 1 year and did not cease, for he said, let me go down to the grave, mourning for my son. For this reason, it is ordained for the children of Yasharallah that they should afflict themselves on the 10th of the 7th month, on the day that the news which made him weep for Joseph came to Jacob his father, that they should make atonement for themselves thereon with a young goat on the 10th of the 7th month once a year for their sins. For they had grieved the affection of their father regarding Joseph his son. So when you take multiple scriptures, multiple manuscripts, we have a goat closely resembles a man's blood. Goat blood closely resembles man's blood. Goat's blood is used for the atonement of our sins. And this all happened on the 10th of the 7th month, which is literally Day of Atonement. Oh, don't you love it? Don't you love it? The connections are unbearable. We'll check into it. I will say this about the timings. In the book of Jasher, Isaac is still alive during some of these things, which last Torah portion we went over his death. And the reason behind that is the things that I'm telling you is because one book is given a summary over a period of time, and and like I said, the book of Genesis isn't covering all these details. And it says, since the book of Genesis isn't going to cover all these details, what are they going to do? They're just going to say Isaac dies. But the book of Jasher or Jubilees is covering all these details. So they're giving you a different chapter, but all of these details just happen to happen before the death of Isaac or Dinah or someone else. That's what's going on. One book doesn't give details, so they immediately have to say she dies. The other book can say she did this and this and this, and then she died. It's not a different time. They're just giving, it just seems like a different time because they're giving it more insight on their life. Like, I mean, come on now. What we're reading, this is minute to the amount of day-to-day details that these people live through. We don't know. We're getting insight on a few weeks of every year of their life, depending on what book you're reading, right? So if you say, I died in 2030, but you don't say anything that happened in 2030 and another book comes and explains all these things I did before I died, then you might be confused. So I hope that makes sense. All right. All right, so we're going to go into the 12 patriarchs now, because this is where we're at in the Torah portion. We're going to go to Zebulun. We're going to get a few of their points of views during the time of Joseph being sold into slavery right here. So we're going to go into Zebulun first. The Testament of Zebulun, chapter 1, verse 7 through 20. And we'll see that not everybody wanted this to happen. You know, the older brothers kind of dictated this whole scenario. So we have Zebulun, chapter 1, verse 7. But I wept in my secret many days on the account of Joseph, for I feared my brethren, because they had all agreed that if anyone should declare the secret, he should be slain. But when they wished to kill him, I adjured them much with tears not to be guilty of this sin. So the scriptures only say Reuben, but we see that that's not the case. He was not the only one that didn't want Jacob to be killed. We see the two that are picked on, though, for Simeon and Gad. These were the bad guys. Simeon and Gad came against Joseph to kill him. And he said unto them with tears, pity me, my brethren, have mercy upon the bowels of Jacob our father. Lay not upon me your hands to shed innocent blood, for I have not sinned against you. And if indeed I have sinned with chastity, chastise me, my brethren, but lay not upon me your hand for the sake of Yaakov our father. And as he spoke these words, wailing as he did so, I was unable to bear his lamentations and began to weep. And my liver was poured out, and all the substance of my bowels was loosened. And I wept with Joseph, and my heart sounded, and the joints of my body trembled, and I was not able to stand. And when Joseph saw me weeping with him, and them coming against him to slay him, he fled behind me, beseeching them. But meanwhile, Reuben arose and said, come, my brother, let us not slay him, but let us cast him into one of these dry pits, which our fathers digged and found no water. For this cause, the Adon forbid that water should rise up in them in order that Joseph should be preserved. And they did so until they sold him to the Ishmaelites, which we know it was the Midianites, then to the Ishmaelites, but this is just a summary. For in his price I had no share, my children, but Simeon and Gad and 6 others of our brethren took the price of Joseph and bought sandals for themselves and their wives and their children, saying, we will not eat of it, for it is the price of our brother's blood, but we will surely tread underfoot, because he said that we would be king, that he would be king over us. And so let us see what So let us see what will become of his dreams. Therefore, it is written, the writing of the law of Moses, that whosoever will not raise up seed to his brother, his sandals should be unloosed, and they should spit in his face. Sometimes stuff is crazy, the origin of some of these stories, right? But or commandments. All right, so that is Zebulun's point of view. Now we're going to go into Simeon's point of view, one of the bad guys for this story at the least. So that was Zebulun. Let's go to Simeon. We're going to do chapter 1, verse 7 through 20. For in the time of my youth, I was jealous in many things of Joseph, because my father loved him beyond all. And I set my mind against him to destroy him, because the prince of deceit sent forth the spirit of jealousy and blinded my mind, so that I regarded him not as a brother, nor did I spare even Jacob my father. But his Elohim, the Elohim of his father, sent forth his angel and delivered him out of my hands. For when I went to Shechem to bring ointment for the flocks, and Reuben to Dothan, where were our necessaries and all our stores, Judah, my brother, sold him to the Ishmaelites. And when Reuben heard these things, he was grieved, for he wished to restore him to his father. But on hearing this, I was exceedingly wroth against Judah, in that he let him go away alive. And for 5 months I continued wrathful against him. So, man, Simeon really, really, really was on one against Joseph. But the Adon restrained me and withheld from me the power of my hands, for my right hand was half withered for 7 days. And I knew, my children, that because of Joseph, this had befallen me, and I repented and wept, and I besought the Adon Elohim that my hand might be restored, and that I might hold aloof from all pollution and envy, and from all folly. For I knew that I had devised an evil thing before the Adon and Jacob my father, on account of Joseph my brother, in that I envied him. And now, my children, hearken unto me, and beware of the spirit of deceit and envy. For envy ruleth over the whole mind of a man, and suffereth him neither to eat nor drink, nor to do any good thing, but it ever suggestive to him to destroy him that he envies. And so long as he that is envied flourishes, he that envieth fadeth away. 2 years, therefore, I afflicted my soul with fasting in fear, in the fear of the Most High. And I learned that deliverance from envy cometh by the fear of Elohim. Let's go. All sin is delivered through the fear of our Creator. For if a man flee to the Adon, the evil spirit runneth away from him, and his mind is lightened. And henceforward he sympathizeth with him whom he envied, and forgiveth those who are hostile to him, and so ceaseth from his envy. Very good, Simeon. All right, let's go to, I actually want to take a little, let me see, is it gonna, come on, is it loaded? There we go. I'm going to point out, even in the Testament of Simeon, I just want to show you something real quick. Even in the Testament of Simeon, therefore was Joseph comely in appearance and goodly to look upon. I mean, every opportunity they get, he's like, yeah, all the sons of Yaakov, they were all brothers, could have been good looking. I don't know. I'm just saying they made it very clear for Joseph for some reason. I just want to point it out. So now we're going to go to the Testament of Joseph. We're going to read 5 through 17, chapter 1. These, my brethren, hated me, but the Adon loved me. They wished to slay me, but the Elohim of my fathers guarded me. They let me down into a pit, and the Most High brought me up again. I was sold into slavery, and the Adon of all made me free. I was taken into captivity, and his strong hand crowded me. I was beset with hunger, and the Adon himself nourished me. I was alone, and Elohim comforted me. I was sick, and the Adon visited me. I was in prison, and my Elohim showed favor unto me. In bonds, and he released me. Slandered, and he pleaded my case, my cause. Bitterly spoken against by the Egyptians, and he delivered me. Envied by my fellow slaves, and he exalted me. That's all. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to read a little bit more of the Testament of Joseph later, but beautifully written, Joseph. In all, have faith in our Creator, in our Deliverer, our Savior, and He will do all of it. Amen, Joseph. And so this is the conclusion of chapter 37. And there's something I want to say for chapter 37 in a nutshell. We're all of us, for our time that we're living now. Chapter 37 is a lesson that regardless if you are in this Torah community, because that is exactly what Joseph was in, right? His brothers kept Torah, right? Hence, his family was a little Torah community. But Joseph was chosen, and he was hated. There's levels to this, family. Let no man judge you in food or drink, in new moon, Sabbath, feast day, etc. Just because people keep Torah doesn't mean they're not going to fall into sin. Doesn't mean they're not going to hate you. Doesn't mean they're not going to fall short. Doesn't mean they're actually good people. Doesn't mean anything. Just like Joseph says, and the world was against Joseph for the longest time. And Joseph relied on the Most High, and he stayed righteous, and he kept keeping the commandments. It doesn't matter if you keep Torah. The Pharisees kept Torah in other laws. All I'm saying is all the sons of Jacob kept Torah, and it didn't matter. Didn't matter. The people, there are going to be people that y'all come across that you respected, you liked, and then they're going to just disrespect you. Remember, if you are walking this narrow path, you're like Joseph. You're chosen. And everyone that sees that light that you shed is going to hate you, even those that's in the Torah community. Okay? Just want to throw that out there. Let's continue. Chapter 38. I say that because I feel like too many people trust random folks online that they met online, they knew for 3 months, 6 months, doesn't matter. And just because they keep Torah, everybody think that they're unable to be a bad person, that they're unable to be a wolf in sheep's clothing, that they're unable to backstab you, that they're unable to build up a false report against you. If y'all read scripture from this story of the 12 sons of Yaakov to Israel itself, the nation of Israel, when they had kings, all of them kept Torah. Sin did not cease. All right. Guard your heart and only trust in Elohim and not man. All right, so we're going to get Genesis 38. We're going to read 1 through 11.
Genesis 38. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned into a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua. And he took her and went in unto her, and she conceived and bare a son. And he called his name Er. And she conceived again and bare a son. She called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Chezib when she bare him. And Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. And Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. And Judah said unto Onan, Go in unto thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his. And it came to pass, when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord, wherefore he slew him also. Then said Judah to Tamar his daughter-in-law, Remain a widow at thy father's house, till Shelah my son be grown. For he said, Lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house.
All right, we're going to stop there, and we're going to get more details of Jubilees 45. Jubilees 45, we're going to read, one second. I wrote Jubilees. I think it's supposed to be Jasher. One second. Yeah, this has got to be Jasher. Jasher 45:23 through. Yeah, hold on. I got to make a correction in my notes. Jasher, not Jubilees. All right, Jasher, Jasher 45, verse 23 to 27. And in those days, Judah went to the house of Shem and took Tamar, the daughter of Elam, the son of Shem, for a wife for his firstborn So, man, this what makes, I wanted to point this out because this is what makes the story so bad, is that Tamar is a daughter of Shem. She's from a righteous line, and she was getting tossed around and toyed around like a heathen. They do Tamar so wrong. Verse 24. Yeah, 23-24. And came to his wife Tamar, and she became his wife. And when he came to her, he outwardly destroyed his seed. Outwardly destroyed his seed. The canon calls it spilling his seed. If you have an imagination, I'm gonna say it this way for those that don't understand. I would say he used the pull-out method. I'll just leave it at that. That's what it sounds like to me, what they were doing. And his work was evil in the sight of the Adon, and the Most High slew him. And it was after the death of Judah's firstborn, that Judah said unto Onan, Go to thy brother's wife and marry her as the next of kin, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan took Tamar for a wife, and he came to her, and Onan also did like unto the work of his brother. And his work was evil in the sight of the Adon, and he slew him also. And when Onan died, Judah said unto Tamar, remain in thy father's house until my son Shiloph shall have grown up. And Judah did no more delight in Tamar to give her unto Shiloph, for he said, peradventure he will also die like his brothers. So he pretty much made Tamar unmarriable because of the whole situation. Judah went and had his seed through a Canaanite woman, and it created wicked sons, and his wicked sons didn't want Tamar, and now Tamar was sent back home as a widow with no child and no husband. That's what makes the situation so bad. Righteous, from the righteous seed of Shem, he just ruined Tamar, ruined her. Like she was at home and couldn't do anything. She couldn't have a family, husband, children, because Judah wanted to give her to his wicked children. All right, let's go to Targum 38:6. Oh, well, this is just a confirmation, but this, where is it at? Yeah, this is just confirmation. And Judah took a wife for in his firstborn, a daughter of Shem the Great, whose name was Tamar. Way to ruin your family's kinfolk, right? Try to give them to your evil children. All right, back to Genesis 38. We're going to read 12 through the remaining of the chapter. We're going to read 12 through 30.
And in process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted and went up unto his sheep shearers to Timnath, he and his friend Hira, the Adulamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timnath to shear his sheep. And she put her widow's garments off from her, and covered her with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place, which is by the way to Timnath. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given unto him to wife. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be an harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, go to, I pray thee, let me come in unto thee. For he knew not that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what wilt thou give me, that thou mayest come in unto me? And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, wilt thou give me a pledge till thou send it? And he said, what pledge shall I give thee? And she said, thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff that is in thine hand. And he gave it her, and came in unto her. And she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and laid by her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adulamite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he found her not. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, there was no harlot in this place. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said that there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. And it came to pass about 3 months after that it was told Judah, saying, Tamar, thy daughter-in-law, hath played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, bring her forth, and let her be burnt. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man whose these are, am I with child. And she said, Discern, I pray thee, whose are these? The signet, and bracelets, and staff. And Judah acknowledged them, and said, She hath been more righteous than I, because that I gave her not to Shelah my son. And he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail, that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass, when she travailed, that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took and bound upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out. And she said, How hast thou broken forth? This breach be upon thee. Therefore his name was called Pharez. And afterward came out his brother, that had the scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah.
All right, all right. All right, we're gonna touch the Targums 38 verse 25. Oh, this is a long one. Okay, and Tamar. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. Make sure this is my spot. All right, we're going to read verse 38. Chapter 38, verse 25. Check it out. Tamar was brought forth to be burned, and she searched for the three pledges, but found them not. Uplifting her eyes to the heavens above, she thus said, Mercy I implore from thee, O Adon, answer thou me in this hour of need, and enlighten my eyes to find the three witnesses, and I will dedicate unto thee from my loins 3 saints who shall sanctify thy name and descend to the furnace of fire in the plain of Dura. In that hour, the Holy One, blessed be he, signed to Michael, who enlightened her eyes, that she found the witnesses, which are the 3 pledges, not people, like the 3 things that she got from Judah, and took and cast them before the feet of the judges, and said, the man to whom these pledges belong is he by whom I am with child. Yet though I may be burned, I do not make him manifest. Nevertheless, the Adon of the world will cause him in his heart to acknowledge them, and will deliver me from this great judgment. Now when Judah saw them, he recognized them and said in his heart, it is better for me to be ashamed in this world that passes away than be ashamed in the faces of my righteous fathers in the world to come. Ugh, I love it. Don't worry about what is going on in the world. Judah handles this in the best way he could, though. He puts that in perspective. Is it better that I burn in this world by a fire that is extinguished than burn in the world to come with fire, devouring fire? For measure is set against measure. This is according to that which I said to Jacob my father, know now the robe of thy son, so I am now constrained to hear at the place of judgment, whose are this seal and mantle and staff. And that being said, let's hear from Judah himself in the Testament of Judah. Is Testament of Judah. Yep, Testament of Judah, chapter 2, verse 10 through 24. After these things, my son Er took the wife of Tamar from Mesopotamia, a daughter of Aram. Now Er was wicked, and he was in need concerning Tamar, because she was not of the land of Canaan. This is why the sons of Judah didn't want Tamar. And on the third night, an angel of the Most High smote him, and he had not known her according to the evil craftiness of his mother, for he did not wish to have children by her, because Tamar wasn't like the Canaanite women, like their mother. This is why they didn't want her. In the days of the wedding feast, I gave Onan to her in marriage, and he also in wickedness knew her not, though he spent with her a year. That is unbelievable. Wow. And when I threatened him, he went in onto her, but he spilled the seed on the ground. According to the command of his mother. Oh, wow. Yeah. See that point too? According to the command of his mother. His mother, the wicked woman that Judah was warned about marrying, it started with her, trickled down to her boys, and that's why this mess happened. And he also died through wickedness. And I wished to give Shelah also to her, but his mother did not permit it, for she wrought evil against Tamar, because she was not the daughters of Canaan, as she also herself was. And I knew that the race of the Canaanites was wicked, but the impulse of the youth blinded my eyes. And when I saw her pouring out wine owing to the intoxication of wine, I was deceived. It took her, although my father had not counseled it. And while I was away, she went and took for Shelah a wife from Canaan. And when I knew what she had done, I cursed her in the anguish of my soul. And she also died through her wickedness together with her sons. Going to verse 24. And after these things, while Tamar was a widow, she heard after 2 years that I was going up to shear my sheep, and adorned herself in bridal wear and sat in the city Enaim by the gate. For it was the law of the Amorites that she who was about to marry should sit in fornication 7 days by the gate. Wow, that's very weird, right? That's like upside down. Like, don't stay a virgin for 7 days. Go sit by the gate of fornication. Is very, very weird, but this is a pagan nation for you. Therefore, being drunk with wine, I did not recognize her, and her beauty deceived me through the fashion of her adoring. And yeah, we'll stop there. Then it just goes into the story that we already read. But we're going to continue, though. We're going to go to chapter 3. And we're going to read 12 through 17 now. Oh, that's very interesting. Sounds like a bachelorette ritual, right? Where you're supposed to go and get laid before your wedding, right? That does sound very similar. So chapter 3, I'm going to read verse 12 through 17, still on the same topic for the most part. Such is the inebriated man my children, for he who is drunketh revereth no man. For lo, it made me also to err, so that I was not ashamed of the multitude in the city, in that before the eyes of all I turned aside unto Tamar, and I wrought a great sin, and I uncovered the coverings of my son's shame. After I had drunk wine, I revered not the commandment of Elohim, and I took a woman of Canaan to wife. For much discretion needeth the man who drinketh wine, my children, and herein is discretion in drinking wine. A man may drink so long as he preserveth modesty. But if he go beyond this limit, the spirit of deceit attacketh his mind, and maketh the drunkard to talk filthily, to transgress and not to be ashamed, but even to glory in his shame, and to account himself honorable. I wanted to include this as I was reading this week, because we don't really get understanding of this in scripture in the canon. We see drunkenness is a sin, but he also gives wine for praise and for joy. And he tells us to drink wine and be merry. And here's a good little breakdown of balance here. He tells us, a man may drink so long as he preserves his modesty. And I'm even going to go to 24 and 25 to summarize all of it. Observe, therefore, my children, the right limit in wine. And we can say this with anything. Put anything in wine's place that can cause you to fall into transgression. Drinking wine isn't a sin, but it can lead to transgression. So many things can be put in the place of wine here that may not be a sin, but it can lead to sin. For there are in it 4 evil spirits of lust, of hot desire, of profligacy, and filthy. Man, I do not remember these. If ye drink wine in gladness, be ye modest in the fear of Elohim. If ye drink wine in gladness, be ye modest in the fear of Elohim. That is the whole thing with all of this. We're going to see in, I believe the very next thing we're going to read in Jubilees, that Judah messed up, and he owns it 1000%. He owns it with Tamar. He calls Tamar more righteous than he. He looks at his whole life and he realized that, man, a lot of my problems is because has fallen upon me because I've been drinking too much. So not only was Judah somewhat of a womanizer, but that trait of him falling into transgression with women started with wine. And he realized that he wasn't drinking no more in the gladness of the joy of the gift of wine. He was drinking to be intoxicated, which led to his shortcomings of keeping the commandments and the fear of Elohim. Someone asked of the Judah, was his sin in hiring a harlot? There actually is no commandment on that. And you see how he doesn't even specify that it was a sin. You know, people can say whichever they want with that, but it doesn't specify nowhere. And to my understanding, I only can read what scripture has. And there actually isn't anything that actually, like, even in the Testament of Judah right here, there's nothing that actually himself or in the scripture or anywhere that points out the harlot part being a sin. I don't know. It is really bad for your children in the women of Yasharallah to be a harlot. They are actually commanded to burn women of Yasharallah that are harlots. But the women of other nations, the Most High doesn't even mention. And then in this perspective, you're asking, is the man wrong for finding a harlot of another nation, which Judah thought he did? And it doesn't specify it. So I can't say. I'm not going to make it up or speak of my own understanding. If you got a verse, you can send it. If not, because I can't think of anything off the top of my head. All right. Now we're going to go into Jubilees 41. Or is this, oh my goodness, this better not be Jasher 41. I feel like, let me see, maybe it is Jubilees 41. Let's see. Okay, it is right. Jubilees 41, I'm going to read 23 through 25. And Judah acknowledged that the deed which he had done was evil, for he had lain with his, see, this is my point to answer your question. What was evil? Let's read. This is what they specified the evil thing that Judah did. For he had lain with his daughter-in-law, and he esteemed it hateful in his eyes, and he acknowledged that he had transgressed and gone astray, for he had uncovered the skirt of his son and began to lament and to supplicate before the Adon because of his transgression. See, that's my point. I just read from the Testament of Judah. We read from the Targum, from the Canon, and now from Jubilees. And the sin that they say is that he slept with his son's wife. That's his transgression. So that's all I can say then. And we told him in a dream that it was forgiven him because he supplicated earnestly and lamented and did again commit it. It did not again commit it, which is the real understanding of repentance. In verse 25, and he received forgiveness because he turned from his sin and from his ignorance, for he transgressed greatly before Elohim. And everyone that acts thus, everyone who lies with his mother-in-law, let them burn him with fire, that he may burn therein, for there is uncleanliness and pollution upon them. With fire, let them burn them. And that is the whole situation of chapter 38 with Judah and Tamar. Yeah, I would agree. It seemed like Judah was a low-key man whore, to just put it plainly. Obviously, if he was just in a city, found a harlot and was ready to do it, right? What would you call that person nowadays? Pretty straightforward stuff, right? But it is what it is. Whatever scripture says is a sin, and I'm not going to add or take away of it. All right. So before we go into, because that's completion of chapter 38. Before we go into chapter 38, we're going to have a little detour, because the canon doesn't specify Esau's death. They don't actually, my understanding, they don't mention it at all. But around this time frame is when Esau, well, we're going to read supposedly his death, but the fighting of Esau descendants and Jacob's descendants happens during around this time frame. So we're going to read on that, even though the canon doesn't speak on it. So this is like a little section between 38 and 39. So when we go to Jubilees 37, we're going to see that Isaac his father just now dies. And this is what I was talking about from last week's Torah portion. And it talks about Isaac's death. It's like all these different books, because now this is the book of Jubilees. It's different information squeezed into the same, like probably the same year. All these different informations, different books, written different perspectives for the same year. And this is a very important detail, because now that Isaac is dead, Esau and Jacob and the beef of the families arise. So now we're going to read Jubilees 37, 1 through 7. And on the day that Isaac, the father of Jacob and Esau, died, the sons of Esau heard that Isaac had given the portion of the elder to his younger son, Jacob, and they were very angry. And they strove with their father, saying, why has thy father given Jacob the portion of the elder and passed over thee, although thou art the elder and Jacob the younger? And he said unto them, because I sold my birthright to Jacob for a small mess of lentils. And on the day of my father sent me to hunt and catch and bring him something that he should eat and bless me. He came with guile and brought my father food and drink, and my father blessed him and put me under his hand. And now our father has caused us to swear, me and him, that we shall not mutually devise evil, either against his brother, and that we shall continue in love and in peace each other with his brother, and not make our ways corrupt. And they said unto him, we shall not hearken unto thee to make peace with him. That shows you like how well he had his children trained, right? This is Esau talking to his children. And his children goes, nah, we're not listening to that. For our strength is greater than his strength, and we are more powerful than he. We shall go against him and slay him and destroy him and his sons. If thou wilt not go with us, we shall do hurt to thee also. So they even threatened their father that if they don't back him up, that you're going to be in trouble with us. I mean, man, his children sound out of control, right? And now hearken unto us. Let us send to Aram and Philistine and Moab and Ammon, and let us choose for ourselves chosen men who are ordained for battle, and let us go against him and do battle with him, and let us execute him from the earth before he goes strong. Verse 7, and their father Esau said unto them, do not go and do not make war with him, lest ye fall before him. Very interesting right here, the warning of Esau to his children. Because when we go back to chapter 25, and we're going to read this in the Targum, chapter 25, verse 23, when the prophecy of Esau and Jacob, when would Esau have dominion over Jacob? Let's read. And the Most High said to her, two peoples are in thy womb, and two kingdoms from thy womb shall be separated, and one kingdom shall be stronger than the other. The elder shall serve the younger, if the children of the younger will keep the commandments of the law. When we were on this poor portion of chapter 25, we spoke about how Esau will have dominion over Jacob only when Jacob is not keeping the commandments. The seed of Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is not keeping the commandments. Well, that's the whole catch. They are keeping the commandments right here. And surely we know what, if you haven't read the details, obviously the seed of Yaakov is going to win, but Esau even was worried and knew so that this was not the right timing of the seed of Esau to be ruling. All right, so now we're going to jump to chapter 38 to just summarize the whole event that they went to. They had a battle, and obviously the sons of Esau came, and the sons of Yaakov and Jacob all was in battle array here. And now we're going to come to the conclusion of it. And after that, Judah spoke to Jacob, his father, and said unto him, bend thy bow, father, and send forth thy arrows, and cast down the adversary, and slay the enemy. And mayest thou have the power, for he shall not slay thy brother, for he is such as thou, and he is like thee. Let us give him this honor. Then Jacob bent his bow, and sent forth the arrow, and struck Esau, his brother, on the right breast, and slew him. And let's get into the context right quick. So many people talk about there is a contradiction. We're going to read there's a contradiction in the book of Jasher, because in Jasher chapter 56, this is way ahead, right? Chapter 56, Esau's still alive. So once again, there's people's like, oh no, what's going on? How is Esau alive here? So if we read chapter 56, verse 24, no, my bad, verse 46 first. And the report reached Esau saying, Jacob died in Egypt. So this is way ahead when Jacob dies, and his sons and all Egypt are conveying him to the land of Canaan to bury him. So we see that Esau is actually alive for the burial of Jacob. But we just saw Jacob shot an arrow in the breast of Esau and slew him, right? Well, let's finish reading this point real quick. I'm gonna read 62 through 64. This is still 56 of Jasher. And Cusham, the son of Dan, the son of Jacob, was at that time with Jacob's sons, but he was about 100 cubits distance from the place of battle, for he remained with the children of Jacob's sons by Jacob's byre to guard it. And Cusham was dumb and deaf. Still he understood the voice of the consternation amongst men. And he asked, saying, why do you not bury the dead? And what is the great consternation? And they answered him the words of Esau and his sons. And he ran to Esau in the midst of the battle, and he slew Esau with the sword. And he cut off his head, and it sprang to a distance, and Esau fell amongst the people of the battle. So, man, you have two totally different points of how Esau dies. Well, I'm here to bridge the gap. I'm here to make both of them make sense. And Judah chapter 2 does that for me. Check it out. Going back to Judah, I think it's, yeah, okay, no, that's Joseph. This is Judah, what chapter are we in? This is Judah 2, we need Judah chapter 2, okay. Judah chapter 2, verse 3 through 8. And Yaakov smote Esau. So we have to understand the terminology. Like sometimes smote, or as Jubilee says, 38, slew. Sometimes they're not actually dead. Sometimes when you read it in context of scripture, smote, slew, it could just be a slap in the face or a beat down. Doesn't mean death. And we see this clarification in a second. And Jacob smote Esau with an arrow, and he was taken up wounded. Esau didn't die here. There you go. On Mount Seir. And as he went, he died. Well, and that's why I'm saying that this is later. And we pursued after the sons of Esau, and now they had a city with the walls around the gates of brass and could not enter into it, and encamped around and besieged it. And when they opened not to us in 20 days, I set up a ladder in the site. Man, do I really want to read this part? Make terms. Oh, this is just the peace offering. That's extra. And what I'm getting out of it, he was wounded here and he died later. That's my understanding on how these both connect, is that he didn't die at this actual spot. And once again, this is a summary. And he died later. I don't think he died here. I think he was wounded here. But that's just my understanding to make it make sense. But all else being said, Esau has died during this time frame, and I just feel like it needed to be talked about. So let's go to Genesis 39. All right, we're going to read the full chapter, 39. We're going to read 1 through 23.
Genesis 39. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house. And all that he had he put into his hand. And it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house, and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand. And he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person, and well favored. And it came to pass after these things, that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, Lie with me. But he refused, and said unto his master's wife, Behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her, to lie by her, or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time, that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and fled, and got him out. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand, and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house, and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in an Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me, and fled, and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her, until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me, and fled out. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, But she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him, and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound. And he was there in the prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison. And whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper.
All right. Let's go to Jubilees 39 now. Five through 8. And Joseph's appearance was comely, and very beautiful was his appearance. Like I said, it doesn't matter what book, right? And his master's wife lifted up her eyes and saw Joseph, and she loved him and sought him to lie with her. But he did not surrender his soul, and he remembered the Adon and the words which Jacob, his father, used to read from amongst the words of Abraham, that no man should commit fornication with a woman who has a husband, for that for him the punishment of death has been ordained in the heavens before the Most High Elohim, and the sin will be recorded against him in the eternal books continually before the Most High. And Joseph remembered these words and refused to lie with her. And she besought him for a year, but he refused and would not listen. So this was an ongoing battle for him. This is the temptation and the sin that he had a battle with at the time. And it was like almost him being good looking was a part of his battle in life. Now let's go to Jasher 44. Jasher 44. We're going to read 55 to 76. So before we read that with the situation, I'm going to go up and read a passage that just sounds ridiculous, but I mean, good gracious. It is what it is. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Here we go. So just to summarize, so I ain't reading all this. Zilkah, I'm just gonna say Zilkah, gave Joseph to these women to clothe him in garments when they had purchased him, right? Now just reading it 32. And all the women saw their hands. Oh, let's go up, right? Yeah, she gave them knives to peel citrons like lemons and to eat them. And she commanded that they should dress Joseph in costly garments, that he should appear before them. And Joseph came before their eyes, and all the women looked on Joseph and could not take their eyes from off him. And they all cut their hands with the knives that they had in their hands, and all the lemons that were in their hands were filled with blood. And they knew not what they had done, but they continued to look at the beauty of Joseph and did not turn their eyelids from him. Goodness. I mean, okay, Joseph, what in the world? How this guy had to be something special. Like, that's just a ridiculous story. But evidently he was that guy. And then if you actually read, I'm not going to read all of it. These women go to Zilkah is like, this man is living with you? How have you not pretty much slept with this man before yet? He is your servant. You should do with him as you please. Which does what for her? Only makes her go even more madly crazy for him, to build up to the story that leads to verse 55. And when Zilkah saw that Joseph's garments was torn, remember, she grabs him to sleep with her, and he pulls away. This is where we're at. And that he had left it in her hand and had fled. She was afraid of her life, lest the report should spread concerning her. And she rose up and acted with cunning, and put off the garments in which she was dressed, and she put on other garments. And she took Joseph's garment, and she laid it beside her, and she went and seated herself in the place where she had sat in her illness. Before the people of her house had gone out to the river, she called a young lad who was then in the house, and she ordered him to call the people of the house to her. And when she saw them, she said, let me go all the way up. Oop, I lost my spot. Where is that? Okay, there we go. Verse 57. And when she saw them, she said unto them with a loud voice and lamentation, see what a Hebrew your master has brought to me in the house, for he came this day to lie with me. For when you had gone out, he came to the house, and seeing that there was no person in the house, he came unto me and caught hold of me with intent to lie with me. And I seized his garments and tore them, and called out against him with a loud voice. And when I had lifted up my voice, he was afraid of his life, and left his garments before me and fled. And the people of her house spoke nothing, but their wrath was very much kindled against Joseph. And they went to his master and told him the words of his wile. And Potiphar came home enraged, and his wife cried out to him, saying, what is this thing that thou hast done unto me in bringing a Hebrew servant into my house? For he came unto me this day to sport with me. Thus did he do unto me this day. And Potiphar heard the words of his wife, and he ordered Joseph to be punished with severe stripes, and they did so to him. Wow. So I'm saying his good lookingness was not working in his favor throughout his life, right? And while if they were smiting him, Joseph called out with a loud voice, and he lifted up his eyes to heaven, and he said, O Adon Elohim, thou knowest that I am innocent of all these things, and why shall I die this day through falsehood by the hand of these uncircumcised wicked men whom thou knowest? And while Potiphar's men were beating Joseph, he continued to cry out and weep. And there was a child there 11 months old, and Don opened the mouth of the child, and he spoke these words before Potiphar's men who were smiting Joseph, saying, what do you want of this man? And why do you do this evil unto him? My mother speaketh falsely and utters lies. Thus was this transaction. And the child told them accurately all that happened, and all the words of Zilkah to Joseph day after day did he declare unto them. So 11-month-old child is speaking this to them. And all the men heard the words of the child, and they wondered greatly at the child's words, and the child ceased to speak and became still. And Potiphar was very much ashamed at the words of his son, and he committed his men not to beat Joseph anymore, and the men ceased beating Joseph. And Potiphar took Joseph and ordered him to be brought to justice before the priests, who were judges belonging to the king, in order to judge him concerning this affair. And Potiphar and Joseph came before the priests, who were the king's judges, and he said unto them, decide, I pray you, what judgment is due to a servant, for thus has he done. And the priest said unto Joseph, why didst thou do this thing to thy master? And Joseph answered them, saying, not so, my lords, thus was the matter. And Potiphar said unto Joseph, surely I entrusted in thy hands all that belongeth to me, and I withheld nothing from thee but my wife. How couldst thou do this evil? And I don't know why he's still acting brand new, right? But he's ashamed. He doesn't want to tell these priests. And Joseph answered, saying, not so, my lord. As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, my lord, the word which thou didst hear from thy wife is untrue, for thus was the affair this day. A year has elapsed to me since I have been in thy house. Hast thou seen any iniquity in me, or anything which might cause thee to demand my life? And the priest said unto Potiphar, send, we pray thee, and let them bring before us Joseph's torn garment, and let us see the tear in it. And if it shall be that the tear is in the front of the garment, then his face must have been opposite to her, and she must have caught hold of him to come to her. And with deceit did thy wife do all that has spoken. And they brought Joseph's garment before the priests, who were judges, and they saw, and behold, the tear was in front of Joseph, and all the judging priests knew that she had pressed him, and they said, the judgment of death is not due to this slave, for he had done nothing. But this judgment is that he be placed in prison, in the prison house, on account of the report which through him has gone forth against thy wife. And Potiphar heard their words, and he placed him in the prison house, the place where the king's prisoners are confined. And Joseph was in the house of confinement 12 years. Think about that. They proved he was innocent, but he still is imprisoned for 12 years. Just insane. Imagine being in court and you're found innocent, and they're like, but we're still going to throw you in prison. Like, what? Doesn't even make any sense. Just ridiculous. All right, now let's go back to the Testament of Joseph. We're going to read 19 through 24 now. I struggled against a shameless woman, urging me to transgress with her, but Elohim of Yasharallah, my father, delivered me from the burning flame. I was cast into prison. I was beaten. I was mocked. But the Adon granted me to find mercy in the sight of the keeper of the prison. For the Adon does not forsake them that fear him, neither in darkness, nor in bonds, nor in tribulation, nor in necessities. For Elohim is not put to shame as a man, nor as the son of man is he afraid, nor as one that is earthborn is he weak or frightened. But in all things does he give protection. In divers ways does he comfort. Though for a little space he departeth to try the inclination of the soul. In 10 temptations he showed me approved. In all of them I endured. For endurance is a mighty charm, and patience giveth many good things. Amen. All right, that is the conclusion of chapter 39. Let's go to chapter 40. And once again, we're going to read chapter 40 in its entirety because it's a full story. No, let's just hear the full story. and then we'll have a couple of points to talk on. The Testaments are so great. They're so powerful. I love them. All right. Chapter 40, 1 through 23.
Genesis 40. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them. And they continued a season in ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, it was sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me. And in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head, and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when thou wast his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed, I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days, yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. And it came to pass, the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants. And he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgat him.
All right, let's hop to the Targums. 40. All right, 40 verse 1. We see in the canon, it says that the butler and the baker had offended their lord, king of Egypt. All right, so what did they offend them doing? What did they do? So what was going on is after these things, it was shown saying the chief of the butlers of the king of Mizraim and the chief of the bakers have offended, having taken counsel to throw the poison of death into his food and into his drink to kill their master, king of Egypt. And that is why they were thrown in. Because this is, so what's going on in this entire chapter is Pharaoh through the chief of the butlers and the chief of the bakers, because he heard a conspiracy that someone was trying to kill him. Hold that thought. Let's go to verse 14 now. We're just, let me see. Okay, and now just pointing out when Joseph was saying, remember me to the butler in verse 14. Let's see. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh. Let's read that now. Joseph, leaving his higher trust, the Most High, and retaining confidence in man, said to the chief butler, but be thou mindful of me when it shall be well with thee, and act kindly by me. Remember me before Pharaoh, and obtain deliverance from this prison of the house. For I, let me see. So just pointing out, because we're going to see more on this, that Joseph left a higher trust and depended on man. We'll see more on that in just a second. So now let's go to 22 and 23 in the Targums. Let me see. All right, so here we go. So we say, and it was on the third day, and he lifted up the bead of the chief butler and the bead of the chief baker in the midst of his servants. And he restored the chief butler to his butlership, because he found he had not been in that council. So the conspiracy was between these two, and the butler was innocent, and he gave the cup unto the Pharaoh's hand. But the chief baker he hanged, because he had taken counsel to kill him, even as Joseph had expounded to them. But because Joseph had withdrawn from the mercy that is above, and had put his confidence in the chief butler, he waited on the flesh. Therefore, the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him until from the Most High came the time of the end that he should be released. So just showing that he put his trust in the man and it fell through. And that was the whole idea of what happened with the butler and the chief. The dreams was showing that Pharaoh found out who was trying to poison and kill him. And now we're just going to finish off last verse here in Jasher 46, 15 through 20. In those days, the queen was about to be delivered, and upon that day she bare a son unto the king of Egypt. And they proclaimed that the king had forgotten his firstborn son, and all the people of Egypt together with the officers and servants of Pharaoh rejoiced greatly. And upon the third day of his birth, Pharaoh made a feast for his officers and servants, for the hosts of the land of Zoar and of the land of Egypt. And all the people of Egypt in the service of Pharaoh came to eat and drink with the king at the feast of his son, and to rejoice at the king's rejoicing. And all the officers of the king and servants were rejoicing at that time for 8 days of the feast, and they made merry with all sorts of musical instruments with timbrels and with dances in the king's house for 8 days. And the butler to whom Joseph had interpreted his dream forgot Joseph, and he did not mention him to the king as he had promised, for this thing was from the Most High in order to punish Joseph because he had trusted in man. And Joseph remained after this in the prison house 2 years until he had completed 12 years. And that is the conclusion of this Torah portion. Shabbat Shalom. I pray to see y'all next week, starting in chapter 41.